If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Let's talk about your audience. Where are they hanging out? And what are they looking for in the different places that they're hanging out? Because what she's looking for on LinkedIn is different than what she's looking for on Instagram and Threads and Twitter X and all the places. Because often most businesses are not like, they can't go all in on every platform. It's just too much. Unless you're a huge company. And so understanding your own preferences, your audience preferences, and then figuring out where we can get specific and strategic and layer in down the road rather than try to go all in on all of them, because most likely that's way more than you can handle and you're going to fall.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success. I am so excited. This has been quite a while. We've been waiting to get together. So, Ruthie, Sterrett, you are the founder and CEO of the Consistency Corner, and I love speaking to other moms in industry, and I'm really excited to launch into a conversation about what you do. And you started out from Victoria's Secret, right?
Yeah, I have a long retail background and, we were talking about being moms. I always knew when I was pregnant with my son, even before I got pregnant, I was working in retail, and I always knew that I wouldn't work in retail forever when I had kids, because nights, weekends, holidays, it's just hard. And so after I had him, I moved into the corporate space, more of the 9-to-5 world, but also learned that it's really hard to juggle all the things. And I remember this was the beginning of the Pinterest era and thinking, Pinterest and Instagram, very early on. And I remember looking around on the internet and thinking, where are all the working moms and how are they doing this? It was they are not, they are struggling. And I remember thinking when he was pretty young, I'm going to do something that helps working moms. I don't know what it is yet, but we're going to get there. And so over time, as he entered kindergarten, we had a lot going on. He was struggling with his transition into that grade, and we changed schools, no longer had aftercare. I had to go to my boss and say, hey, I have to leave every day at 2:00. And this was not a remote friendly environment. And so my boss was like, well, we'll see. And I was like, well, I don't work here anymore then. So, long story short, but I ended up resigning, and I realized what I meant to do is do something to help women do work that they love and still have the capacity to be there for their families and themselves.
Amen. That is so important. And it is such a struggle. When I got married and got pregnant with my daughter, I left a full-time job and started a little company of my own, but then same thing. And even if I'd stayed at my other job, nights, evenings, weekends, couldn't do it. My now ex-husband, but great co-partner or co-parent and partner, he traveled so much for work that it wasn't tenable if I wanted to spend any time. We want to have quality time as a family unit. And as moms, I think for me, it was important to be able to be there for my daughter and participate in activities and be able to have that flexibility. So I did take some time off. And then when you get back into the workforce, you have to go, do people even care about my skills anymore? What can I do that uses my skills that will be appreciated? And how do I manage this with having kids? Because they might get sick. Something might happen at school. You have to leave. There's no choice, right? And so I found that being an issue in many of the companies that I've tried working for when I've tried working for somebody else is they don't really understand that maybe they don't have kids. They don't have kids in my age group. They have more help, whatever the case may be, right? So you're offering a huge service because it is hard to try to do everything for our businesses.
Yeah. Yeah. And, with social media, which is what we specialize in,
Mm-hmm.
so many business owners I find that they can do it for a while and it's fine. And they might even like it to a point that it's like, oh my God, this is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like I did not start my business to be a full-time content creator. And I have talked to business owners who are like, it makes me start to lose my passion for my mission because I have to show up and feed this algorithm and be on this content hamster wheel. And so our goal is to take that off of their to-do list so that they can have the energy and the capacity to do the things that light them up, whether that's in their business or spend more time with their families or like take a walk, take a workout class.
Exactly.
Go to yoga, whatever it is that gives you energy instead of having to think about social media because unfortunately, at the end of the day, people are on social media. And so it is important for our business to have a presence and understand it and use it strategically to connect with our ideal audience. It's just, it doesn't have to be you all the time doing all the things.
Yeah. And I mean, I used to, when I had my PR firm, my team also worked on the social media and kept me on track. And that was fantastic. But without them, I just, like you said, it gets overwhelming because, you shouldn't do the same post on every single platform. You have to figure out where your audience is, which platform is going to be most effective. But honestly, this podcast has grown without social media. So I know that's one of the things that you talk about is that, social media is part of it's important. Obviously, that's your business. But, you have to think about it strategically. And it's not the only thing that you have to do. So can you talk a little bit about your philosophy?
One of the first things that I do with my clients is we always say, first of all, what are your business goals? Like, I need to understand your business goals because your business goals and your business model are going to determine what marketing's job is and what then job social media can play in that ecosystem. And just like an employee, we need to give the platform a job description. We need to know what we're asking it to do. And what you're asking it to do is maybe different than another business owner. And so we can't just compare and say, well, such and such guru said I should be doing this because that might not be applicable to where you are in your journey, to where your client is in the journey. And there's so many things to consider. So we start by figuring out really high level, like what tools are you using to attract new eyes to your business? What tools are you using to nurture that audience? And what tools and platforms and channels are you using to convert? And often I see business owners that are like dabbling a little bit in a lot of different things and not being consistent anywhere.
Yeah.
And so we say, okay, let's pick 2 for each one of those goals, attract, nurture, and convert. Let's pick 2 places that we're going to show up. And ultimately, social media we can use for all 3 of those goals. We can attract through video, through keywords, through shareable content. We can nurture through education and entertainment. And we can convert by having links and calls to action. What we can't do usually is all 3 of those things with one post. So if our goals are to use social media for all 3 of those things, we do have to look at the volume of content and say, are we putting enough content out there to actually move the needle towards those goals? And I don't think anybody should only be marketing on social media. We absolutely should be using other channels, but it starts with deciding for you, for your business, for your audience. What are we asking social media to do? And then we can create a strategy and a campaign calendar.
Yeah. Nice. So talk about getting those first clients as you moved from corporate business into starting your own.
Yeah. So my corporate business I worked in retail in the fitness space for a mid-sized retailer, regional retailer. And all of my background was in retail and took on some freelance jobs, signed one of my own clients from a personal connection in the retail industry or a service provider in the retail space. And it took me a couple years to land on the niche. Everybody said, oh, you have to niche down. And I even say to my clients all the time, like, we cannot talk to everybody, because if we do, nobody's listening. But if we talk to one person, other people are going to, let's pick that one person. But I really struggled to pick that one person. I thought, well, my background's in retail. I should stay in product-based space. And then that didn't feel good. So I was like, well, I'm going to focus on service providers, or I'm going to focus on creatives. And just nothing felt good. And I was talking to a friend one day, and this was right after we had back-to-back hurricanes in Florida, which is where I live. So like, my life was crazy. We had no power for a week. I was just exhausted. And I was just chatting with her as a friend and fellow marketer. And I said, I don't want to contribute to the like overconsumption of content just for the sake of content. And I said, so that's where product kind of feels like yucky to me, because it feels like with product-based businesses, like it's just pumping out content to get in front of people to sell more stuff. And I'm like, that doesn't feel good. And I said, but I don't know who I'm supposed to help. And she goes, well, what if it's not about what they do, but who they are as a person? Like, let's just think about that. And I said, well, at the end of the day, I just want to help brands that help moms. She goes, then just say that, Ruthie. I was like, oh, yeah, it's really that simple. And so when I kind of had that light bulb moment, it was like, yeah, that's what I've always wanted to do. When I had my son, I knew I was supposed to do something that helped moms. When I resigned from corporate, I knew I was starting an agency that would help moms. So it only made sense that the audience, that the ideal client is businesses who help moms. And so when I made that decision, kind of realigned my messaging, my branding, started a networking group that we host kind of every 6 to 8 weeks online for founders of brands that market to moms, which is a part workshop run social media, part speed networking, but just to build the community and cheer each other on. And it has felt so good to finally feel all those little things click in that journey along the way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And talk about the name. The Consistency Corner.
Yeah. So funny enough, the Consistency Corner brand name started out as health and fitness coaching. Like many people, I got my start in entrepreneurship in network marketing. I tried jewelry sales. I did Stella and Dot, and then I did Beachbody for several years. And as a Beachbody coach, I was like, okay, I'm going to, go out and do my own thing and like start my own health coaching business. I was working with a coach, and we came up with the Consistency Corner because of the need to be consistent. And it was about 3 months after I had launched that brand, and about 8 episodes into me launching my podcast, I was at a business retreat, chatting with some other women there, talking about different things and sharing with them my corporate experience. And a couple people were like, you're really good at marketing. Like, you really good at this. And I'm a self-taught marketer. My degree is in sales. My education is in sales, but marketing, I just learned all on my own. And we were talking in that retreat about who is your ideal client. And I was like, maybe my ideal client is somebody who doesn't know about marketing and needs to learn. And my coach was like, oh my God, I see a light bulb. I see it. Like, just pivot. And we pivoted to marketing. At that time, I didn't know if it was coaching, agency, whatever, but I knew it was going to be marketing. And the name still made sense because there's so much parallels in health and fitness and marketing that consistency is incredibly important. And the long game is important, and doing the right things is important. So I made that pivot, and we stuck with the name of the Consistency Corner. And so I've been able to, a lot of times in my coaching, teaching, my podcast, I have tons of analogies that I use around fitness because it's very similar to the marketing and the health and fitness of your business, the way that you do marketing.
Yep. Yeah. I love that pivot. I similarly, but maybe a little more closely aligned. The name of my podcast is my registered trademark that started with my PR firm. My PR firm was my name. It was just Annika PR, and Your Brain Amplified was what we did. And then it just became a natural thing because I aqua merged or hired that agency into another agency, but I kept the name because I'd already started my podcast. And that actually is more encompassing of everything that I like to talk about. It's not just PR. It's not just marketing. It's not just sales. Everything is all about your brand.
Yeah.
right? And how you show up in the world. So I love that you're able to make that pivot. And my next question actually was about your podcast. So when did you start?
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Yeah, so I started the podcast originally in 2021. And like I said, the first 9 episodes were about health and fitness. And then we pivoted to marketing. And I ran my podcast consistently, weekly episodes, for close to 200 episodes. We were at like 180 something. And I had to take a step back and say, and this was all while going through the like, who is my ideal client? What are our offers? Like the evolution that everybody goes through in the beginning. But I had to take a step back and say, my podcast is not moving the needle on my business goals. And part of that is because for a long time, I didn't know who the ideal client was. I didn't have a solid offer suite, but I realized it wasn't moving the needle on my business goals and it was taking up a lot of time. And so I said, we're going to pause. I'm not shutting down the RSS feed. I'm not taking it off. Like, we're going to pause and we're just going to come back to this when the time feels right. And so after about 6 months of reworking the messaging, really honing in on who we serve and how we serve them, I thought, okay, I am ready to bring the podcast back. But now what I really want to use it as a platform for is to have on founders of brands that serve moms and share their solution, share what they do with the world. And then we have a little 5-10 minute conversation about social media, and I can maybe help them solve a problem or answer a question or discuss what it is that they're doing in their business. Because what we found in our networking workshops is often if you're struggling with something when it comes to your social media, somebody else is too. And so it's helpful to have those real life conversations about your strategy, the tactics, the tools. And so to be able to give women that platform to learn a little bit and share their solutions with the world has made it really exciting to relaunch the podcast this year.
Fantastic. Again, great pivot and great job really figuring out what you wanted to be in the world and how you wanted to show up and how you wanted to help others show up.
Yeah. And similar to social media, I had to give my podcast a job. I had to understand what was its job in my business. And for some people, some creators, yes, it's the podcast job is get as many downloads as possible because their revenue model might be ad sales. Well, I don't need 50,000 people to listen to my podcast. I need the right people to listen to the podcast, right? And so once I understood that and realized that this is a platform that we can use to build the community, it was way, way more exciting to even show up and to work on it consistently.
Yeah. And that, again, that always changes. And we have to look at those pivot points. My podcast was just for fun and maybe some clients and PR people. And then I was like, I actually want to expand who I'm talking to. And then, I changed it every little bit, but it has changed also from a hobby to a business, which is fantastic. But it's also a great way for me to meet amazing people that I now have a connection to. And so if I have somebody who's like looking for your service, who is a mom who's serving moms, I know exactly who to go to. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite things is organic network.
Well, and the thing is too about our businesses is to like be okay with the fact that it is going to evolve. It is going to change because we as people are going to evolve and change. And one of the things that we do when we bring on new clients, one of the first things we do is we create what's called your cornerstone content kit. And it's a huge document of like everything about your brand and your business. And part of that is the brand evolution because it's important for our team and your internal team and any other contractors that you work with to understand that brand story because you know it. It's in your brain. You know those pivot points and how you've evolved. But it's important to document that and share that with the other partners so that they get the whole picture.
Absolutely. Do you have businesses that come to you and want to trend jack, right? They want to be part of Mom Talk or they want to like just do all the little TikTok dances and things. And they think that's the way to bring awareness to their brands. And what do you say to them?
Yeah. The thing about trends that we talk a lot about with our clients is that they are one tool, but they are not a strategy. They are a tool in the tool belt, just like strategic hooks are a tool, just like trending audio is a tool, just like effective calls to action, mini chat is a tool. And what we want to do is pick the trends that make sense for your business and that feel fun for you, because we don't need to do every single trend. At the time we're recording this, there's a trend going around right now where it's like balancing on a little tiny thing on one foot and like and like showing the juggle and the balance, and like 42-year-old me is not trying to do that, and I am like, that. And there are times that there are other trends that we'll see that I'll send it to a client and be like, hey, I know this might feel a little off, a little spicy, but like, let me explain it to you. And often they're like, oh, okay, let's try it. I typically don't attract people that are like, all I want to do is do trends. Yeah. But when people have questions about trends, what we typically want to say is do it for fun, do it for a, maybe like an injection of helping the algorithm, because content will get in front of more people, but we're not going to build your entire strategy around trends alone.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have the 3 pillars of what somebody needs to do for their business.
Yeah.
You have the plan that you create for them. And then how much time do they need to assist with the content creation?
Yeah. It does depend upon their business model. I find that podcasters or people who have maybe a book already or long form content or a lot of blogs can spend less time because there's so much repurposing that we can do. But typically with our clients, we spend 2 meetings a month, like anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, just talking through things. And that alone gives our team a ton to work with. And then they might need to provide some B-roll. They might need to provide some photos here and there, but it's certainly not a constant thing. They might be spending now 2 hours, 3 hours at most a month working on social media content. And our agency can support with other things too, like email and blogs, things like that, if they want their add-on packages that we can do. So depending upon their business model, they're going to be definitely spending less time on marketing. And what I've heard from my clients more than anything is not they appreciate the time that they've saved, but what they really appreciate is we're doing so much more than they were able to do on their own. And so they know that they're getting effective results because they now have a strategic partner who's handling this versus them trying to handle it while they handle 10,000 other things.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, something you just said was my next question. So this is like perfect. You talked about you can also offer support in other areas like email marketing, blog posts. And I was going to ask, so in terms of social, do you also handle advertising?
We don't do paid advertising right now, but I have several partners that do that I would recommend and bring in if a client is wanting to get into paid. It's something that it's a whole nother ballgame. It's a whole nother platform. And so what I always recommend is that you feel really dialed in with your organic social media and your messaging before we invest in ad dollars, and that work we do up front around your cornerstone content kit, that we do that work. So whomever is helping you with ads, whether you work with one of our partners or you bring in your own partner, they also understand your brand. Because I have seen ad agencies in my corporate life and my life as an agency owner now, I hate to say it, but there's people that they're going to take your money just to take your money. Yeah. Or they're going to give Meta your money just to say they're doing things. And, you see it too. There's people that will inflate numbers and be like, oh, well, we got you this many impressions, or we got your CPC down to this. But okay, but did it lead to any sales?
Exactly.
And if it we need to take a step back and look at the whole ecosystem. And so when we do connect our clients with ad partners, I make sure I vetted them and they're people that do that and understand that, because advertising is pouring fuel on the fire, but we need to make sure that the fire is already burning and working.
Yeah. And there are so many changes, of course, with Meta and other platforms just saying, oh, just give us the creative, tell us your budget, and we will do all the work. Sometimes effective, sometimes not. We know that many other things are changing. And we also know that on social media platforms, we don't own those platforms. So we need to make sure we get our audiences to engage with us in other ways. So do you have a favorite platform, or is it dependent? Because I know, for instance, I never would have thought Pinterest would be good for a podcast, but it's been fantastic for my podcast.
Yeah.
And that's, something surprising.
Yeah. When we talk to our clients about platforms, what we typically want to do is we say, number one, where do you hang out? Because social media, at the end of the day, it's social first, it's media second.
Yeah.
So we want to know, where do you like to hang out and engage and be with and connect with people? And then we're going to say, okay, let's talk about your audience. Where are they hanging out? And what are they looking for in the different places that they're hanging out? Because what she's looking for on LinkedIn is different than what she's looking for on Instagram, and is different than what she's looking for on TikTok, and is different than what she's looking for on Facebook and Threads and Twitter X and all the places. And so we want to think about, because often most businesses are not like, they can't go all in on every platform. It's just too much. Unless you're a huge company. And I love this analogy or the story that I heard during the election, that Kamala Harris's team had a 30-person social media team. She had 30 people running her social media, and each platform had a lead strategist and 4 to 5 creators under them. And so if you have that level to invest, good for you.
Yeah.
But most don't. So we need to
Right.
1, maybe 2 platforms where we can get really strategic, we can get really specific. And so understanding your own preferences, your audience preferences, and then figuring out where we can get specific and strategic and layer in down the road, rather than try to go all in on all of them, because most likely that's way more than you can handle and you're going to fall.
Yeah.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Such a good point. When you said that example, I was also thinking Gary Vee, right? He has a huge, huge team. And I've spoken to people who've worked with him and with other, people who've gotten big in that kind of industry. And they charge, $65,000 a year and up to help you go viral and create content. And that's just not in most of our budgets, like you said. So, and there's only a certain, I guess this is where AI comes in. And I'd love to talk to you about that, because there are people who are like, oh, I can do everything with AI now. Can they? Right? Is it really going to be effective? So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
That's a great question, because of course we use AI in our business. And I know a lot of business owners do. What's important with AI is the editor, the person who's asking AI the questions, and the person who's giving AI the feedback and saying, no, that's not right. Let's fix this. Let's change this. And so many business owners who are busy, they turn to AI for support, but they haven't learned those skills yet.
Yep.
And so it's not actually helping them. They're just posting garbage. And there is a whole industry that can teach you how to do better, which is great. But if you don't have time to learn it, you're not any better off than you were before. And so, I used to tell my clients, newer business owners who are not ready to outsource yet, I used to always tell them that bad content is better than no content, because bad content helps you learn. But if bad content that AI generated and not generated, you're not learning anything. You're just copy pasting. So from that perspective, I would rather you put out less content and learn and get good at it and feel good about it. And even if it's not like you haven't learned the hook structure or the formulas that work in terms of copywriting, at least getting really comfortable with what your message is, so that then when you bring in a professional or a team member or support, you're able to communicate that to them so that they can understand and then translate it.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that, beyond the hallucinations and the too many fingers or teeth or whatever, we do see that a lot of the video quality is getting better and better if you know how to ask the right questions, do the right prompts. But we also know that user-generated content delivers more sales, more conversions, and people find it really authentic and they get to know you, the person behind the brand, and trust you.
Yeah.
And that's one of the questions that we're asking right now with AI is like, well, is it going to be too polished where it is going to lose the trust, even though people might think, oh, this is a time saver, a money saver. But if you're losing the trust and that authenticity factor, it's not going to serve you.
It doesn't matter. And what we're seeing even for major corporate brands, when it comes to social media content, they're going towards less polished, less professional, more off the cuff, more quick and fast, because then it's human generated and it's responding to what the market needs right now versus highly produced or overly AI. That's what's connecting with audiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's a hard shift for some people to make. And I don't know about you as a marketer, but oftentimes I feel like more than half of my job is just explaining to clients or people of like, this is why this works and why what you think works only worked 20 years ago and doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. It's fascinating to look through the trends. And I imagine one thing that you also get is people who don't really know what their brand is. They have a website, they have a logo, they know what they think they're offering, but they might not be targeting the right audience. So you have to work on that as well before you can even get to making really amazing content for them.
Yes, 100%. Because like we said, if you talk to everybody, nobody's listening. If you talk to the right person, other people are going to eavesdrop, but you got to figure out who that right person is. And, oftentimes people are like, oh, my niche is busy moms. Every mom is busy. Every single one. So if you say that, we're actually talking to all moms. So we've got to narrow it and distill and drill it down. And you're right. Without the right questions and the right prompts, often people haven't thought through that, or they've thought about it, but they don't have the language to articulate it, to explain it to someone else, which is why then delegating feels really difficult. It feels really challenging to outsource because you don't have the language to communicate to another person what it is they need to know to be able to help you. And if there's anything in this world that is my zone of genius, I feel like asking the right questions is that superpower. And so I'm able to talk with our clients and listen to them and ask the questions to get to the root of that so that we can create effective content for the right people.
Yeah, nice. I wanted to ask about your clients. Do you have a favorite story that you can share with us?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing that comes to mind when you said that is a client that we're working with right now who's a life coach for moms, and she does incredible work. And I love listening to her podcast and hearing her talk because she does make such a difference for the women she serves. But as we were working on her launch planning for the fall and her telling me like, oh my gosh, I normally just like decide to launch and the next week I do it. But like we're putting together an actual plan here, and we're putting together not only what are we talking about during the launch window, but what are we talking about in the month before and 2 months before, so that we're really warming the audience up and creating that journey. And so having her kind of see that and understand that like, wow, this brings a whole new level to my content was really fun to be able to support that. And during that time, her daughter's graduating from high school. She's got teenagers still at home, that we're handling things for her so that she can live her life and do those things and still show up really consistently online.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate the fact that you talked about the pre-launch phase too, because sometimes people are like, all right, I'm launching in 3 weeks and I need to start now. You're like, wait, let's back up here. Yeah. And also the pivot, like when we were talking about pivoting earlier, now I'm thinking even pivoting our own personal socials. Sometimes we want to do that and we try to pivot it to a brand social, and that doesn't always work. Have you seen that happen?
So that is a conversation I have constantly with my community of, do I lean into my personal brand? Do I lean into my business brand? Can I do both? what is the right answer? And unfortunately, like so much in marketing, it depends. And the answer's not the same for everybody, but it's a really tough choice to make. And I even have struggled with it because I built my personal brand around network marketing, then started the company brand and really, really leaned into that, grew that brand, but had built my audience really with a lot of collaborators and community, not necessarily ideal clients. And so said, okay, I'm going to go back and lean back into that personal brand. And then for a while was trying to do both. And at the end of the day, I had to go back and say, well, what is the data showing me? What is actually happening with content? What is happening with the engagement? What is happening with the audience? And while both were seeing growth in terms of impressions and reach, the engagement was pretty much flat across the board. Leads were not coming from either source, and conversions were pretty much flat across the board. And so I realized, for me, at least in this moment in my business, I needed to lean into one versus both so that we could amplify that one. But then again, it's like, well, which is the right one? And so I had to go back to, what are the business goals? Well, the business goal is to grow the agency. It's not to get me on stages. It's not for me to land brand deals. So then that means we're going to lean into the agency brand over the personal brand, but still need to have a strategy for me as the face of the agency. And, I talk to clients about like, well, if somebody Googles your business, what comes up? Somebody Googles your name, what comes up? And what is the presence on social media? And we didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but one thing we do for clients is Instagram 9 grids, which is kind of like a static placeholder for one of those profiles, which I love if you don't have the capacity to lean into both, but still have a really intentional presence on the one that you're not building right now.
Yeah, because I know that was something that a lot of people were using. So can you talk about how you're using it and why it's still valid today?
Yeah, it's definitely still valid today with the caveat that that's not the only thing you're doing. Right. So just like our websites, we were kind of sold this lie of if you build it, they will come. Well, that's not really true. If you build it and you market it, then they will come. And so if you have an Instagram 9 grid up, you think of that almost as a mini website or as a billboard or a magazine cover. And so if you're not familiar with it, what it is it's taking the first 9 posts on your Instagram grid, building them in a strategic way together where they almost look like a puzzle, and they tell a story. They tell who you serve, how you help, how, what you do, what your offers are, what your lead magnets are, things like that. And if we put up a 9 grid, we have to still go back to that fundamental question of, how am I attracting new eyes to my business? Where am I nurturing? How am I converting? And the 9 grid is one piece of where we're nurturing and converting. We're probably not attracting new eyes to our business with a static 9 grid, but it is checking the box of a professional presence, and it's telling people the story that they need to understand when they look you up on social media. And I've had people say, well, people don't find me on social media. Yes, they do. That they're just maybe not converting and contacting you from social media, but they're looking at you and they're making buying decisions. And so having the 9 grid gives them the intentional content that we want them to be consuming, just like we'd want them reading on your website, that you don't have to constantly be posting to have up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I appreciate getting into that side of things too. I think there's so much more that you could share, so much we can learn from you. Obviously, we want to save it so that people listen to your podcast. It's relaunched?
It is relaunched, yes.
Okay, fantastic. And of course, we'll have your website in the show notes and link to your LinkedIn and all of that stuff. Is there a special offer or anything special people should click on when they get to your website?
Yeah, if you are interested in attending one of our networking events, the Social Media Mixer, up at the very top of the website, we've always got the ribbon for where you go to come to the next one. We have it about every 6 to 8 weeks. So it's not all the time, but often enough that you can hopefully find one you can attend. And like I said, it's part workshop, part conversation, speed networking, where we have breakout rooms. We get to talk about life. We get to talk about business. We get to talk about social media with other founders of brands that market to moms, so we can cheer each other on and support one another.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. And Ruthie, I always have one last question. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, verse, poem, family motto?
Yeah, mine is work hard and be nice. And I think that is my Midwestern roots. I'm based in Florida now, but I grew up in Indiana. And, I'm 100% believe in work ethic, but gosh, I believe in being nice to people. So that's what I live by. Work hard and be nice.
Yep. As a Kansas girl, I highly approve. So amazing. Thank you so much for sharing such great knowledge. And I think it's so important for us to still be asking these questions, no matter how long you've been in business, right? Reevaluating what you're doing. Is it serving your clients? Is it serving your brand? And how can we do better, especially when we are busy moms? I mean, I don't even think, like you said, we need to say busy. Just if you're a mom, you automatically are all these things. We're juggling a lot, and we want to be intentional about our time and energy and making sure we're showing up for our families, for our kids and for our businesses effectively.
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate the work that you do to amplify brands and people that are doing great work and making sure that people know about that.
Amazing. And thank you to everybody who's watching this episode or listening to it. I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story, their journey with you. In the meantime, don't forget to click on the show notes and check out everything that Ruthie has to offer. Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrangamplified.com.
If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.